Hi there, and welcome to the Alberta Update. A look at what's happening in your province. I am your host, Bruce McAllister. Thank you for being with us today. And we will begin the program by welcoming in the Premier to say good day and find out how busy she has been of late. Good day, Premier. Always nice to see you.
Hi, Bruce.
Hey, let's begin with this one. Big news this week. You're considering legislative changes to safeguard freedom of expression for regulated professionals. There have been several concerns raised with these bodies about limiting individual freedoms. I'm guessing that is the logic behind this. Tell us more.
Well, I may as well call it the Jordan Peterson law. I think everybody's been following what happened with Jordan Peterson. He put some mean tweets out on Twitter, and all of a sudden he had anonymous complaints against him, people who had not even been his patients. I don't even think they even knew who he was, saying that somehow he had violated some professional code of conduct, and they ordered him into re-education. And so when you look at that, you say, why in the world would the psychologist profession be policing somebody's political opinion? That's a demonstration that they have gone a step too far. And the fact of the matter is that the courts you would have expected would have stood up for free speech and free expression, but they've essentially ruled, it seems to me, that these regulatory bodies have carte blanche to do whatever it is they want to their members. We don't think that's appropriate. We know that the provincial government gives these regulatory agencies their mandate, and if their mandate creep has gone too far into the realm of regulating in areas where they shouldn't, we got to rein them in. So we want them to be looking at issues of patient safety or client safety, financial malfeasance, and ethics issues. We shouldn't be policing what they think, what they believe, especially when it comes to political opinion. So we're doing a full professions review, and hopefully we'll make some legislative changes to be able to give more certainty to those who are in those professions.
All right, speaking of mandate creep, talk about a good segue. Your government announced a national ad campaign to combat the federal government's emissions cap on our oil and gas industry, a cap that most say, certainly here in this province, is a production cap. Why did you feel it was necessary?
Well, it is a production cap. We've had several different independent third parties, Deloitte, Conference Board of Canada, and S&P Global, say that if you try to achieve the kind of emissions reduction they're proposing in the time frame, the only way to do it is to shut in production. S&P in particular said it would cost us 1 million barrels a day of production by 2030 and 2.1 million by 2035. You can just do the math on that, assuming like a $75 per barrel price. It's billions of dollars for our provincial government. It's tens of billions of dollars for the Canadian economy. It would have an impact immediately as well on people's prices that they pay for everything, because when you make something more scarce, it increases the price. And Conference Board of Canada says that that would be a hit to a household budget of $419 per month, which means more expensive groceries, more expensive transportation, more expensive home heating and electricity. And we just don't think in an affordability crisis that taking a hit at our principal industry, one of our largest exporters, is going to hurt the bottom line of regular households is the right thing to do. I don't think they have a mandate. We've seen for the last couple of years, the fortunes of the Liberal Party have plummeted. They are losing public support. They've lost their partner in the Parliament. Even the NDP are saying things like the carbon tax has got to go, and that's just a demonstration.
Even some of the oil and gas companies are now advertising in central Canada about your message, so it is clearly getting through to Canadians. Listen, it won't be long. You'll be back in the legislature here right away for the fall sitting. You have a couple of bills coming forward that will have to be debated and then either passed or failed, of course, and a couple getting a lot of media attention already. The Alberta Bill of Rights. Why did you feel it was important to bring this forward, and what can we expect to be discussed?
Well, look, I mean, we know that people felt during the COVID era that their personal medical decisions were not their own. And so that was one of the reasons, is we want to let people know that we believe that those who have the wherewithal to make their decisions about their medical choices should have the right to do so without being discriminated against by the government. So that was one thing. We've also seen a number of different regulations and rules coming in place from the federal level that has impacted our law-abiding firearms owning community. So we wanted to affirm that firearms ownership and use, and especially the safe use of it, is something that we protect in this province. And also more support for property rights, generally speaking, and including a requirement for compensation if governments decide to take or regulate away the use of property, as well as more support for free expression, because I think that's everybody's very worried in this last couple of years, of the chill that we've seen in public discourse. And so we wanted to underscore that we believe freedom of expression is essential to a free and democratic society. So those are the reasons why we're making the changes.
All right, you're also going to be talking about gender issues, about a discussion about women's sports and women participating in women's sports, and not biological men, protecting, children's rights. Can you speak to that and what you're hoping to accomplish?
That's right. I mean, our starting point really is, at what age should a child be able to make irreversible decisions about their body, whether through surgery or whether through hormones? And what we came up with is that if you're a minor, 15 years of age and younger, you have to wait until you make adult decisions until you're an adult. We can talk about what age that would be, but we've made the determination that we'll have no puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones for those age 15 and under, and no permanent physical changes of surgery for anyone under the age of 18 as well. Just knowing them, the decision that somebody makes to have children is a very important decision. They make it as an adult. They shouldn't be forced to make those decisions as a child. So we want to be able to support individuals in becoming who they're meant to be, with proper amounts of mental health support and medical support, but also making sure that they're making the decision at the right time. We've also heard loud and clear as well that parents want to be involved in those conversations. They want to know what's going on with their kids. So we're going to make sure that parents are involved every step of the way as a child works through that process. And then we've also heard that biological women and girls feel disadvantaged when they have to go up against someone who was born male in competitive sports. And so we're going to create a biological female only category, also make more options available for co-ed participation. And we hope we found the right balance. We've got some good feedback. We'll have some good debate, but I think that we're going to be able to protect everyone's rights by going this way.
Premier, thank you. We will talk to you next week, this time when the legislature reconvenes. Appreciate your time as always.
Thanks, Bruce.
And the Premier has been joined by a chorus of voices in pushing back against Ottawa's emissions cap, de facto production cap. Business leaders from within the industry, those outside of it, have all been speaking out. Of course, ministers within the government are.
So this is the time to start looking at a campaign to explain to Canadians, and it is a tougher one, I'll be honest, how to explain how an energy production cap impacts Canadians. Well, as Premier mentioned, it does. It matters if we don't have access to safe, affordable, reliable energy. If we as a country don't have energy security, I can tell you that that was part of the discussions we were having in Washington in June of this year. That matters. But how does it matter to an everyday Canadian? Well, when you take things like a carbon tax and then you layer on a clean electricity regulation that's going to drive up the cost of their electricity bills, and then you layer on an oil and gas production cap that is going to kill tens of thousands of jobs, drive investment out of our country, and lower the GDP of not only our province, but the entire country as a whole. That absolutely means less money for every Canadian household. And as the Conference Board of Canada suggested, that's over $400 less a month per family.
Alberta has been reducing our emissions for years, and we didn't need a federally regulated emission cap to do so. This proposed cap will lower quality of life for all Albertans and for all Canadians, and put thousands of jobs and a stable energy supply at risk. We've said it before, and we'll say it again. Alberta is cutting emissions, not production. Cutting production cuts jobs. It cuts revenues.
We have Environment and Protected Areas Minister Rebecca Schultz joining us to talk more about it today. Minister, always a pleasure to have you on the program. Thanks for taking the time.
Of course, my pleasure.
So listen, you heard the Premier talking about it a little bit. We saw this, excuse me as I lose an earpiece and fix it while we're talking. We saw your government launch this national campaign. You call it Scrap the Cap, and obviously you're trying to appeal to Canadians across the country about it. Why is it so important? And, do you think it'll work, frankly, in Eastern Canada?
Yeah, here's why we had to launch this campaign. It's because the federal government is, I know all of your viewers are going to be so shocked to hear the federal government is not being truthful about their policy and the impacts that their policy is going to have on everyday Canadians across our country. They're calling it an emissions cap, but we've seen Deloitte, S&P, the Conference Board of Canada, all point out that this is going to impact energy production. First of all, of course, that is an area of provincial jurisdiction. We here in Alberta, of course, our Premier Danielle Smith is standing up for Alberta and saying this is an area of provincial jurisdiction and it is not okay that the federal government is introducing policies that are going to impede on that jurisdiction. And again, I mean, it's not just us. Those numbers from independent analysis suggest that there's going to be a million barrels cut every single day of production, $28 billion a year in lost GDP, and that's according to Deloitte. That's not our numbers, that's theirs, and up to 150,000 lost jobs according to the Conference Board of Canada. Of course, the question for Canadians right now is a big one is around affordability and the policies that this federal government continues to layer on top of the carbon tax, on top of what they're doing with their net zero electricity grid plans. This is going to impact Canadians across our country when it comes to their monthly bills and their cost of living. And we want them to let the federal government know that it is time to scrap their ideas around that cap.
Minister, as a follow-up to that question, the federal government, and I guess specifically Minister Wilkinson and Minister Guilbeault, they're claiming this campaign is about misinformation. They say it's not a production cap, it's a cap on emissions. What do you think when you continuously hear this argument from them, and obviously the very real concerns that you have outlined? They don't appear to be hearing us.
I would say just once again, they say one thing and do another. I think, we see this federal government in complete and utter disarray, given, I would say, their downward spiral in the polls. I'm not sure that one hand knows what the other hand is doing. And it's not us suggesting that this is going to be a production cap. Again, when S&P and Deloitte and the Conference Board did their modeling, this is based on the federal government's own numbers. I think what we see again is a federal government whose top priority is appeasing their environmental activist base and not listening to the basic concerns and the real desire to have affordable, reliable, secure energy for Canadians and be the provider of that energy to the rest of the world as well.
A lot of people, Minister, are saying that what the government is doing, what the federal government is doing here, is banning common sense in favor of ideology. Case in point, the passing of federal censorship bill C-59, which is what people are calling it, makes it illegal for companies to speak proudly about their emission reduction report. How do we fight back on this ongoing censorship that we're seeing from Prime Minister Trudeau and the federal government?
Yeah, well, first of all, as our Premier always says, we will continue to tell the truth, even when Ottawa seeks to silence it. I can tell you that right when this bill was announced federally, or when it finally came to light in some of the media reports, I was down in Washington, D.C., and some of the questions I was getting were, do you not have freedom of speech protected in your country? That is an embarrassment, really, when we look at how the federal government has treated this. It is a censorship bill, plain and simple. Of course, as Alberta's Environment Minister, I will not be gagged or silenced, and I will happily talk about our industry's record when it comes to the environment and stewardship, all day long. I would say the world and Canada needs affordable, reliable, safe energy. We are one of the most responsible producers in the world. We need to tell that story. We don't need to back away from that conversation. So we will use every tool in our toolbox, as is the case on many fronts of this federal government, to voice our concerns, demand that the federal government abolishes this bill, which of course does impact investment in technology and in energy. It's also why in September, I put out a statement after we finished our review that we submitted to the federal government, demanding that they scrap those changes immediately. And we did see business groups across the country saying, this is bad policy and it's not the right way to go. So again, we'll continue to defend our provincial jurisdiction, defend our major industries, and defend the ability for all industries. And it's not just energy, manufacturing, transportation, agriculture. Concerns have come across the board about this bill and this overreach.
All right, one more. and I know you'll have an answer to it because you're obviously very familiar with your file and probably defending Alberta when you don't have to. But facts matter. So, what is Alberta's reduction emissions? History like? How does it compare to the federal government? I gather we have things to be proud of here as a sector in Alberta.
We do. Unlike the federal government, I'll start with theirs. They have not, despite their carbon tax, their job killing, affordability punishing carbon tax, has not enabled them to hit one of their emissions reduction targets that they have set in the last 9 years. We can compare that with Alberta, where our overall emissions are in decline. We hit our 45% methane emissions reduction target 3 years ahead of schedule, costing industry $600 million less than if they had done things the way that the federal government wanted to go. We've seen electricity emissions reduced by 53%. We're seeing per barrel emissions intensity in the oil sands go down by 23%. Industry has been taking the lead on doing this. Their investors are wanting to see that work be done. It's that entrepreneurial spirit and innovation that we've always seen from Alberta that made us an energy powerhouse that's helping us lead the way on this file. And we don't need the federal government to come and tell us how that needs to be done, because our record speaks for itself.
Albertans, thank you for continuing to tell our story. Minister of Environment and Protected Areas, Rebecca Schultz, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
In other news this week, it seems like just yesterday that devastating fire tore through Jasper, of course, this summer. Jasper had up to 30% of its structures destroyed in that blaze, despite the hard work of firefighters who did manage to save most of the core services in the town. Sadly, many people lost their homes, and there is a huge shortage of housing now in Jasper as we approach the winter months. And that is why the Alberta government is stepping up. As Minister of Seniors, Community and Social Services, Jason Nixon tells us the government is making a huge commitment to help those who lost their homes.
Today, Alberta's government is announcing that it will be immediately investing a total of $112 million to build interim housing for Jasper residents while the community rebuilds. This funding will provide 250 modular homes in the Jasper town site for individuals and families who lost their residence during the fire. These are not temporary structures or camps. These will be permanent homes that will be fully serviced and will provide a safe place to call home for displaced Jasperites.
Applications and eligibility details will be released soon by the ministry. It is hoped that these homes, which are being built off-site, being constructed off-site, will be ready for residents in January of 2025. Huge news for Calgarians and indeed Albertans everywhere was announced this week as the new Arthur J.E. Child Comprehensive Cancer Centre is complete. Here is Minister of Infrastructure Peter Guthrie with more on how this facility came together and all it will mean for those who use it.
Recently, we celebrated the official opening of the new Arthur J.E. Child Comprehensive Cancer Centre in Calgary. This $1.4 billion investment is one of the largest infrastructure projects ever undertaken by Alberta's government. From concept to completion, engineers, architects, technicians, patients, family advisors, and medical professionals collaborated on this project. From the outset, our goal was to create a sustainable environment with plenty of natural light and reflection spaces to foster healing for cancer patients. In addition, the design incorporates educational opportunities through research laboratories and learning spaces. Since the start of construction, the project has been an economic driver for Alberta, creating over 8,700 construction-related jobs. Together, through perseverance and dedication, we designed and created a world-class facility to deliver life-saving cancer care programs and support for patients and their families.
Now, the day of this announcement was really quite special. So many people who poured their hearts and souls into making this project complete were there, and those who, of course, have been impacted by it and will be in the future. Here is Health Minister Adriana LaGrange on why this facility is much more than just a building.
Bricks and mortar are only the beginning. It's really the people that make the difference. While this beautiful facility's capabilities are evident, its impact is what will set it apart. On top of its extensive services, the Arthur Child will bring something intangible: hope. Hope for the patients who will soon receive treatment and care from a dedicated team of practitioners. Hope for groundbreaking research and breakthroughs that will make a real difference. Hope for future clinical trials. Hope for improved personalized support for patients and their families. And hope for a future without cancer.
The Premier spoke as well at this event, giving a heartfelt thanks to those that have contributed and donated to the facility, and also making a special thank you to the frontline workers who work so hard to make a difference in the lives of those dealing with cancer. Well, November is Family Violence Prevention Month. I know Children and Family Services has been doing a lot of work on this front. You've likely been reading about it, and we are pleased to have the minister responsible for this large and important file with us today. We say good day to Minister Cyril Turton. Good day, Minister.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Bruce.
Super to have you on the program. Listen, tell us first about, what actions government has been taking to help prevent family violence.
Well, as you know, Bruce, there are so many Albertans and families that are affected by family violence. It truly is a scourge on our society. It's affecting children, it's affecting families. And so as I've been traveling around the province, I've been meeting with survivors. I've been meeting with families and women that have been affected. I've been having numerous roundtables, both with women's shelters as well as sexual assault centers. Bruce, I think our government has been doing so much in this regard. We're investing millions in women's shelters throughout the entire province, as well as the preventative services like family resource networks, which really help support children and families in the preventative nature to make sure that they can build up their resiliency. And together, I think we're making great steps in combating family violence here in the province.
Minister, your ministry did put together a very powerful ad campaign, drawing awareness, frankly, to the devastation, the impact that family violence can have. What impact has that campaign had?
Well, Bruce, we know that since we've been doing the campaign, that we've been really doing our best to raise the exposure about what impact this has on families throughout the entire province. Everywhere I go, there are women and kids that have been coming up to me for those side conversations and telling me about the personal experiences and saying for the first time they actually feel safe to be able to tell about their experiences and how they're accessing the supports that they need to be healthy. We have ads happening on social media and billboards at West Edmonton Mall, and we know it's actually making an impact because we see that the numbers of families accessing the supports that the province is putting forth is increasing. So I think this is a positive sign that our message is getting out, that there is help available for residents that need it. And I know children and families are going to be looked after because of it.
Minister, family violence can take many forms. I don't have to tell you that. Unfortunately, moving into sexual violence as well. Obviously, these are very sensitive issues. How is your government helping to support survivors?
Well, it's a great question, and you are correct. The face of sexual violence has indeed been changing. And the stories and experiences that my ministry deals with today is very different than the experiences that were coming forth maybe 10 years ago. And that's why I'm very thankful to be working with Minister Tanya Fern, Arts, Culture, and the Status of Women, and her leadership in the National Action Plan to end gender-based violence. And my ministry has already received about $2.5 million already, and we're using those funds to invest in programs that are making a tangible difference to help support those survivors that need to begin that first set of healing, but as well as those preventative services that we know are making a big difference throughout the entire province.
All right. Speaking of funds, I know your department spent some money on child and youth specifically earlier this year, survivors of this kind of violence. Tell us where that money is earmarked and the difference it's making.
Well, a key aspect that I actually love talking about is our family resource networks. We know that this is a first step in providing preventative services for families throughout the entire province. If you're a young dad or a young mom and you have nowhere else to go, many times in many communities around the province, the first place you go is a family resource network. We know that through those FRNs, they can receive supports, even in terms of maybe food or just knowing what types of services are in their area. So the whole spectrum of services, both from actual shelter space for those families and children that need really intensive services, to the soft preventative services that are involved in our family resource network. My Ministry of Children and Family Services covers it all.
And your ministry is not alone. Look, I know this. Some of the work that you do crosses into other ministries, and so you work with Minister Tanya Furr, I believe, Minister of Arts, Culture, the status of women. Can you speak to that and how your departments come together to make a difference here?
Well, again, as I stated, Minister Tanya Furr has been showing exemplary leadership within our ministry. And we work together very closely because, as you know, Bruce, in so many different files around government, there's definitely an overlap between one ministry and another. So I work with Minister Tanya Furr, as well as Minister Nixon, when it comes to many families and community groups around the province. But many of my services also start blurring into education as well, and making sure that kids are also aware of many of the services that we offer. I'm very thankful that within government that we are doing our best to remove those silos, smash down those barriers so that we can provide more comprehensive services to the residents that need them. And we're not worried about empire building. We're actually making a tangible difference and making sure that those flows of communication are increased, because we know at the end of the day, children and family are going to benefit because of the cooperation through various members of cabinet.
Minister, if somebody's watching this interview and wondering how can I get some help, or maybe they know somebody that could use some help, how do they go about doing that? Where would you point them? Where would you direct them?
Well, it's a great question, Bruce, because we know that there's a lot of people looking for support. And we have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week service. They can call 3110-1818, or they can go online at alberta.ca/safety chat. Calls can be answered in over 170 languages. And there is someone there if you call that number, if you need help, just know that we're there for you. We believe you. We want to make sure you receive the supports that you need to keep you and your family safe. And I think together we can work together to end gender-based violence here in the province of Alberta.
Minister, we appreciate you taking time to join us today and talk about these things. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, there is the Minister of Child and Family Services, Cyril Turton, with us today on the Alberta Update. And that does it for the Alberta Update this week. A first-hand look at what's happening with your government in your province. We try to bring you the newsmakers of the day, the Premier and the other ministers, to have them update you firsthand on the important work that's going on here in Alberta. And we do this every couple of weeks when the legislature resumes, which is very soon. We'll try to bring this to you every week. And a reminder, you can find us on YouTube. You can also go to socials, where we're on Facebook, Twitter, all of the above. And thank you for being with us this week. We'll see you again next time. Good day.